Hey guys, it's me again. I'm back, this time with an interesting video. So recently I went ahead and did a Intro to Fighting Games panel at Anime Midwest, and I figured that I might as well record the entire thing, so that way I can maybe upload it to YouTube, which, obviously it's right here. This is pretty much just a filler video in the middle of the real content. The real content's taking a bit long because, well, one, weaving around copyright is a bitch when it comes to animation and things like that, and I just really want to make sure it doesn't get struck down at all. Also, some minor audio issues are kind of stopping that from getting made, but once it comes out, it's going to be really awesome, and I promise the second part won't take as long. So that'll be something to look forward to. And yeah, basically, I already did this intro once, but Adobe, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you'll see Adobe literally crashed my entire PC making this, so I have to redo this entire speech all over again. But yeah, basically, I just enjoy the video, and if you notice any cuts or changes in audio, that's likely because I went around and messed with something to retroactively either add something to correct myself or to add on to what I was talking about, because I did leave out a few things that I feel that I should have touched on while doing this. So yeah, just enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Okay, I was about to say, why is this loading so slowly? So, welcome to What the Hell is a Quarter Circle, a basic intro into fighting games. First off, I guess I should probably say, who am I and why the hell should you listen to me? Okay, that loads slowly. So primarily, I am a YouTuber online. I go by Dr.Sonic or Dr.SonicPHD. I also am the current president at the Illinois State University for the fighting game club over there. So I'm in charge of managing the club, basically setting up games and things like that. We just recently started, and we're really about to get into it next semester. So for any of you guys that may go there, be sure to look us up. We are very excited for the upcoming semester. But first and foremost, what the hell actually is a fighting game? So basically, to kind of get into it, and also if any of you have any questions or anything you would want to go ahead and ask or anything like that, or add on to things, go ahead, raise your hand. I'll call on you because this is as much for you guys as it is for me. So what is a fighting game? Basically, as far as I could find in my research, it originated in 1976 with Sega's Heavyweight Champ. And it was slowly built up over the years through things like Karate Champ, ER Kung Fu, and the original Street Fighter in 1987. But it was really in the 90s where it started taking off, especially in the mid-90s through arcade culture, where things like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and eventually ports onto the home consoles for things like Tekken and Virtual Fighter really helped the genre take off and just become an absolute monster. I mean, I think we're all aware of like the weird 90s cartoons that came out, and I think it says something about your franchise when like a rated R property like Mortal Kombat had a kids show running. So it just says a lot about how big they were, pretty much going into the 90s and things like that. And a fighting game is pretty much exactly what it says it is. It is literally a game where you fight your opponents. Basically, there's different ways. Obviously, the way I don't know if everyone can see it here, but the way I put it here is just the way that makes it sound easiest in my head, because honestly, modern day fighting games are so varied in what's going on in them that it's honestly hard to group different fighting games into different sorts of categories. So I think this is like the best way to describe it to those just getting into it. There's the 1v1s, you have your things like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, things like that. Basically, it is literally just you and whoever your opponent is, and you're dueling it out in a arena. Sometimes these games, for the most part, are slow. Sometimes, in the case of Guilty Gear, they are insanely fast with lots of combos and infinites and things like that. They're really fun. Definitely on the slower side, like I said, for the most part, but there are exceptions to that. A personal favorite, the Marvel-esque series of fighting games. Basically, this kind of refers to the subgenre that Marvel kind of helped to inspire with the Marvel vs. Capcom series. Once again, kind of came out in the 90s, early 2000s. Really took off with like Marvel 2, especially in the arcades. And this is basically a series of games where it is up to 2 or 3 characters per player at a time. Are chosen to be used, and you can use things like assists. You can call them into swap them into the fight, and things like that. And I said in the little thing, I'll let future me take it here, but it's really hard to describe because the thing about Marvel combos, or not Marvel combos, Marvel-esque games is that they're pretty much varied, because you could argue games like Dragon Ball FighterZ is a Marvel-esque game, considering it does fulfill the idea that it is a 3v3. There are hella long combos. There are so many TODs in that game. But at the same time, a lot of people would not call it a Marvel-esque game. They would call it an anime fighter, which is not on here, because if you called everything that looked like anime an anime fighter, we would be here all day listing off all sorts of games. It's just, in my opinion, the term anime fighter is just for people who want to generalize it and don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. But yeah, games like that are Marvel-esque, at least in my opinion. Obviously, the Marvel versus games are big in this. Dragon Ball FighterZ, I personally listed, and Blazblue Claw Tag Battle. The next one is a 3D fighter. This one's a bit smaller and also where I'm least experienced personally. Basically, most fighting games take it on a 2D plane. And by that, obviously, it's like, oh, okay, I punch. There's no way this punch is going to miss. But in a 3D-esque fighter, you're basically in a situation where someone will punch, but they can weave into a different dimension. Kind of like I think it's like a Y-axis pretty much, if I remember correctly, where an attack can actually miss because you literally dodged out of the way of it like you would like an actual punch. And things like that. And basically, these type of games also require a lot more spatial awareness because of that. Like I said, I'm not fully experienced in these, but I am aware of them, and I do want to eventually get into one of the ones that I listed on here. So games like this are Tekken, Pokken, which is something I've really heard lots of positive things about, to be honest. It's a really good and solid fighting game, from what I've heard. And a bit of Soul Calibur. It's kind of weird with Soul Cal, because, like, on one hand, yeah, it's kind of the traditional 2D fighter, but then you also kind of get into, like, all the wacky stuff you can do in that game. Because I actually did mess around with SoCal, what was it, 6? It was the one with 2B and Geralt in it. I bought, like, the special... Okay, it was 6, yeah. So I bought that around, I messed around with it, I made a bunch of customized characters, as you do in that game, which was really fun, and things like that. And the final one, I don't think you guys at the back could see this, but it is platform fighters, because I do technically count things like that as fighting games because they still do fulfill the normal conditions. They're just kind of an entirely different subgenre, to the point where it's like saying you live in North America, but you live in Canada and the person you're talking to is in Mexico. It's kind of like that big of a divide because the communities don't really mesh that well, in my opinion, at least from what I've personally seen. I should know I literally was the president of a Smash Club before I went to Illinois State, so I know a thing or two about that. But basically, these games refer to a game who's mainly on a 2D plane, and as it says, primarily focused on fighting on a Soul platform and just knocking your opponent into the blast zone. Games like this are basically Smash Brothers, Rivals of Aether, Multiverses. I could go on and on. The genre is experiencing a huge boom right now with things like Multiverses and All-Star Brawl and stuff like that. And I heard Rivals of Aether is doing really, really well right now. They're paying out so much money to their competitors. It is actually amazing the support that game has. I'm actually a bit jealous, being an ex-Smash player myself. But this brings me why. Why do you want to pick up a fighting game? Why does anyone want to pick up a fighting game? Let's be honest here. Why do you guys want to pick up a fighting game? And I'm here to tell you, the games are just flat out fun. They're fun to watch. They're fun to play. And in general, they're just a ball. I know I've been having a lot of fun watching a lot of DNF recently, as that came out, I believe, last week, if I remember correctly. And I've just been having a ball watching the dumb stuff Crusader does in that game, and like the prayer people are saying with him and things like that. It's just fun. And that brings me to the next thing, which is the community is awesome for the most part. And I say for the most part because obviously there are, with any community, you're going to run into like roadblocks. And I think my favorite part to make fun of that portion of the community is the Twitter account Scrub Quotes. They just post nothing but bangers, and it is glorious. I love that Twitter account so much, and I'm glad that they exist because every single time I see a Scrub quote, a big, like, Grinch-like grin pops up on my face, and I'm like, you stupid-ass motherfuckers, and things like that. But yeah, no, the community is awesome for the most part. I have encountered nothing but support and help in terms of getting into fighting games and things like that. So really just a highlight, especially the Discord communities for older games. Those people are just awesome. They are keeping old games just running, and it is incredible. The second reason, and I know some people might disagree with me on this, they introduce you to some of the sickest characters and stories you will experience. Because I swear to God, for both Blazblue and Guilty Gear stories, you need a PhD and you need to attend a college lecture. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about this. There is just so much BS that happens in those stories, but at the same time, it makes so much sense when you actually listen to the lore. It is dumb, and it is absolutely fantastic. I have, for example, in terms of the characters, the Guilty Gear character select from one of the older games up there, and that's just because some of these designs are like verging between awesome and who the hell designed this? And let me tell you what, it was literally one guy. I am not kidding. One guy pretty much designed every single character up until recently for Guilty Gear and is absolutely insane. That man is just crazy. Moving on from that, the goddamn music. The music for fighting games is amazing, and in fact, I'm pretty sure you have probably heard it in the background of some of the YouTube videos you guys listen to and things like that, because things like Infinite Azure, Midnight Carnival, Linnea's theme from Eunice, they are all iconic, they are amazing, and they are life-changing, especially Midnight Carnival. That shit goes in hard. It is absolutely one of the best songs I have ever heard, and Daisuke is a holy god for making that song. And the second one is an old saying in the community, which is a pixel and a dream, which are some that I will demonstrate to you right now, as I do have 2 moments listed up. I will show the most famous version, or not the famous version, one of the most famous instances of this. I'm sure a lot of veterans in here are going to be very excited for this. I will explain the context of it later, afterwards, because the context afterwards makes the clip in retrospective so much cooler.
I go actually angry. Just its turtle style. Overcome Rao. Now on the verge of putting Daigo down. 1-0.
Okay, so for the context of that clip, I forget which version of Street Fighter it is. It might have been Turbo? Was it Third Strike? It was Third Strike. Okay, the entirety of like Street Fighter 2 to Street Fighter 3 is a blur to me because they renamed that shit so many times it is impossible to keep track of in my head. But the reason why that clip is so famous and things like that is because for reference, the player playing Ken, basically, as you guys saw, was down to literally the last pixel of life. And Chun-Li just decided to say, okay, I'm just going to super you and you are going to die from chip damage. Until the Ken goes ahead and parries every single one of the hits of that super. This is a game where chip damage is a thing, like I just said. So the entire fact that he was able to do the parry motion continuously so every single hit you saw there that should have hit him, he had to do the parry motion for that. On perfect timing. It is hard as hell, and the fact that he was able to do it on the world stage, if of anything, was absolutely incredible. And there's like memes of the fighting game community all over the place, like, what would you do if you had a time machine? I would go back and record this with a 180p camera so we can all relive it. So it is an absolutely glorious moment. The second one doesn't really, actually, yeah, two of the clips I have don't really work as well without audio, so I'm just gonna go skip those, but I'll probably put them in the YouTube video I'm making of this later, because I'm literally recording myself right now, and I'm just gonna edit it down to a YouTube video, because, you know, free content. Yeah, so basically things like that are really great examples of why fighting games are so special, because even with your friends that can happen so often where you are down a character or you're on your last pixel of life and you just bring that shit back. You bring it back so well that your friend just has no choice but to shake your hand and go like, God damn! So it is absolutely amazing, and you just absolutely live for moments like that. It is half the reason why watching EVO is just absolutely fun, no matter what game you're watching. Okay, and so I showed you all these things about fighting games, and I understand, in some of your heads, there's still a bit of doubt. So here are some of the most common things I've heard, at least in my time as president of both the Smash and the Fighting Game Club, of what reasons why people don't want to join the club. So I'm going to list them off right here. Number 1, I'm bad at fighting games / games in general. Number 2, I have no friends to play it with. Number 3, I don't have insert console here, whether it's the PC, a Switch, yada yada yada. Or number 4, the genre is just way too hard or complicated for me to even remotely start showing interest. So we're going to go through these one by one. So the first one we're going to go through is I'm bad at fighting games / games in general. First off, like most games, fighting games is mainly about your mentality and what you're thinking of when you go into it. This is something like literally any like psychologist or psychiatrist will tell you, is that it's all about what's in your head. If you tell yourself in your head before you go into a tournament or before you go in to play a session with friends that, oh, I'm gonna suck, I'm not gonna do good at all, I'm gonna not like the game as a result, that's a you thing. You are constantly reinforcing that idea in your head that you are not good enough to play the game. When in reality, if you went into it with like a more open mind and you're like, you know what, I'm going to try this, I might get my ass handed to me, but as long as I have fun and really engage with the game, you might end up enjoying it, because this happened to me a lot. I was personally one of the people who didn't even want to touch fighting games with a 10-inch pole, and once I started giving it a chance with some games that I'll bring up later, absolutely clicked for me. I fell in love with the genre from their point, and like I said, I fell in love with it to the point that I'm here presenting the reasons why you should get into the games now. Like, that's how much I fell in love with the genre. The second point, nobody gets into fighting games playing like Jesus, all right? You are not going to like pull a Nessie, you're not going to pull a Justin Wong, you're not going to pull a whatever like major sports person you can think of in your head. Nobody starts off perfect. Maybe some people start off gifted and they're naturally good at it, but nobody starts off playing well, especially with fighting games. There's, especially depending on some of the ones you get into. I know Central Fiction has some like 360 inputs that I know for the life of me I still can't do like myself personally. So it just, nobody gets into it. We're all here for the learning experience. And like I mentioned earlier, the community is absolutely amazing at providing resources at how you can get better and how you can improve your game plans. And thirdly, just get somebody to learn the game with you. Fighting games are a two-way street where you have to have another person to play the game. And you know what? If you and your friends suck at the game together, is there really any saltiness or complaining? You both know you suck at the game. You're learning it together and you're teaching it to each other. It's like, oh man, look, I found this awesome new tech, or I found this awesome new combo piece that you should try out for your character. Because in the same vein of Goku and Vegeta practicing against each other to constantly get better and one-up each other, that's the type of like thing you should be striving for when you get a friend into a fighting game. But that leads into the second thing. I have no friends to play it with. First off to that, I say in the wise words of Patrick Star, we are not cavemen. We have technology. And by that, I mean, you have the goddamn internet, the best resource possible for like meeting new people. And not only that, but you have online services like PlayStation and Xbox. They're more for like than just sending salty messages. No, if you really like fighting someone, send them a friend request or go like, hey, are you available to like play again at a later time? I really enjoyed playing against you. And things like that kind of just let it spawn into it. Because like I said, if you do not have a friend to like play the game with, you can just find one. The communities are huge for these games. There are so many discords, so many local events for these type of things, that it is honestly really hard to go through this without finding a friend eventually, or finding someone to like just casually play the game with. Even if it's someone to casually play the game with, think about how like you could eventually get them into it, or how you could even practice things such as combos, because a thing you'll learn really fast is that there's a difference between doing a combo in the training room and doing a combo versus an actual person. It's good practice for that reason alone. And as I mentioned earlier, just get a friend or family member to learn it with you. You'll be surprised how many people like get into these things through friends or family members and things like that. And to kind of build on top of what I just said earlier, don't be afraid to make friends at events in locals. It's really easy, and there's lots of people there to like do it with. I know personally I made a lot of friends at Smash tournaments and things like that, going to the University of Chicago for Smash tournaments and things like that. So it's pretty damn easy, and I genuinely think you should go out there, put yourself out there, and try to make more friends. It's fun. Okay, but what if I don't have insert console here? This one's a bit more difficult. So the first point I have really is, one, fighting games are available on every platform practically for the most part. It's hard to really think of games that aren't available on most platforms. I can think of some maybe Japanese games that aren't available on Xbox, solely because for those of you unfamiliar, the Xbox just does not do well in Japan, so a lot of developers really don't put the efforts to port it there. But even then, I think for the most part they're improving it, and a lot of games do get Xbox ports nowadays. So not to mention, like I said, they go on sale. So if you're broke at the moment, you can't afford to shill out the $60, wait for that to go down to maybe 30, 10, or 40. The prices vary, especially with DLC and things like that, but relatively, for the most part, they go on sale often because it's a really easy gateway to get into these games. This one kind of is similar to the first one, which is just do research on what games are on which consoles, because you'll be surprised that certain games are on certain consoles, or I lost my tongue there. But like I said, you'll just be surprised at where you can find games at. And this one pretty much only applies to PC users, but G2A and Humble Bundle are your best friends at finding cheap-ass PC games. And it is pretty much where you can get a lot of other cheap games. Those two sources in general are just really good at finding cheap games. But in terms of like things like I don't have the console, that one's a bit more difficult, because unfortunately consoles are a bit more on the expensive side, and I understand, especially nowadays, people don't really have the funds to push out for like a PS5 or an Xbox and things like that. Some developers are getting better at this with cross-play, cross-progression, things like that, but unfortunately, monetary situations are a bit more difficult, and obviously I'm not about to solve any sort of treasury thing in the United States government by sitting here at a panel, so... So the final one is, the genre is too complicated, and right here I have put down the subject and the name. The devil himself has appeared. The quarter circle. This statement is probably the one with the most validity, because on the outside looking in, they are hard as hell. You have to learn practically a new language to understand some of the inputs. Veteran players know what I'm talking about, but I'll explain it later. And obviously, certain characters will have different inputs varied to the quarter circle, which are arguably much more difficult to do and things like that. And this is the only one where I will say that, yeah, there is validity to this. And to that, I do say that, I'm going to refer to the point I made earlier. Nobody enters fighting games playing like Jesus. And two things you always got to keep in mind when getting into the fighting games is practice makes perfect, and patience is a virtue. You are not going to get that combo on the first night of you finding that YouTube video. You're not even going to get it probably a week after you've seen that YouTube video. Why? They take time. Everyone learns at a different rate. Everybody learns different things at different paces, and that is absolutely okay. We all learn slowly, we all learn fast. It just varies person to person. The second point I want to learn is, once you learn the language, which I will bring up later, you are practically good to go. The language I'm going to teach you guys pretty much translates to almost every single fighting game, and the second you know what it is, you'll pretty much go like, oh, okay, this is what that combo means, and it carries over to practically every game. I'll get into it later, but most fighting games nowadays are actually leaning towards simplicity to the groan of some veteran players. Personally, I am a big fan of it because just letting people in is a good thing. It's like you need more people to come in, like fresh blood. You want more people to like get into it. Like Guilty Gear Strive, for example, a lot of people ragged on it for like simplifying certain things and getting rid of other aspects of the game. But have you seen how much that game popped off on Twitter and YouTube? That shit is everywhere. You can see so many Guilty Gear cosplays just out there. I would not have seen that like prior to that game's release. It is absolutely insane how much exposure that game series got solely because of Guilty Gear Strive pandering to let new players in. And it is absolutely fantastic, and I love it for that franchise because Strive is just a fun game in general. So this one, I'm not going to read everything off here. So, like I said earlier, I am the president to the Illinois State Fighting Game Club. So this is like something I made for the Discord, so that way newer fighting game players have slides they can look at to get into the games, because obviously we can't just explain everything constantly to every single new person who joins. But this is pretty much the language I was talking about. It is called Numpad Notation, and basically it's like just corresponds. Like if you guys have laptops or computers at home, you will notice that there's like a little side thing with the numbers and everything like that, that for whatever reason the computer doesn't recognize half the time. That's basically where this gets its origin from. It is basically all the directions you can push on your typical joystick into any direction. So for example, if you push straight down, that's 2. If you push straight forward, that's 6. You push straight backwards, that's 4. You just leave it in neutral, that's 5. And basically this helps to understand what direction to push. Rather than saying, oh, just press down B, forward 6, you can say, oh, 2B, whatchamacallit, okay, so that example doesn't work unless you guys know the specific games, but let's take Guilty Gear, for example. You want to combo 2S into 6H and things like that. Basically, it allows you to translate basically every single input you will ever encounter into a fighting game really easily, and once you get the hang of what Numpad Notation is, you're pretty much set. You understand every fighting game under the spear as long as you understand the general control scheme of that fighting game, because that's another thing I'll get into, is that a lot of them are different. And this general thing, I wish somebody made a poster of this on Etsy. I tried looking it up ahead of time because I was like genuinely about to bring a giant poster of like the Numpad Notation here with like a dry erase marker and everything to show you guys, but nobody sells it, which is a crime. But this kind of gets into what I was saying earlier, buttons. Every fighting game pretty much has a different button system. For example, Dragon Ball FighterZ and Battle for the Grid share the same 4 basic buttons of light, medium, heavy, and special. However, they don't share the same thing as something, say, Guilty Gear or Blazblue Cross-Tag, because Cross-Tag, for example, uses a 4-button system that labels, okay, I don't know where that K came from, but A, B, C, and D. They pretty much mean the same thing. Once you get accustomed to fighting games, you'll understand, oh, this button means it's a light, this button's pretty much a medium, this one's a heavy. But basically, everyone likes to be a little special snowflake and change up their button scheme constantly, so... But basically, knowing what buttons are in the fighting game you play are basically essential, and in combination with knowing Numpad Notation, basically equals an easy-peasy understanding of every single fighting game you're going to encounter. And honestly, it doesn't even matter what buttons correspond to which, because fighting games allow you to just map almost any button to any control you want, so whether or not... It's kind of a joke with me and my friends at this point, because I play on a arcade stick and they play on keyboard, and they're like, oh, what button do you use to get the light out? And I'm like, broski, I have no idea what you're talking about. I just press the first button right next to the joystick, all right? We are operating on entirely different systems here, and I have no idea how to help you. But yeah, no, they're basically really lenient in terms of what buttons you can correspond to different controllers and things like that. Just be sure to be aware of the different button presses, like I said. This one's kind of what we covered, but motion inputs. Basically, this puts puts what you know about numpad notation to the test, because quarter circles, for example, in this case, whether it's a reverse or a forward quarter circle, or the forward one is 2, 3, 6, which means down, side, up. 2, 1, 4 is backwards, so 4 is down, 1 is to the side, 2 is fully backwards, and things like that. And the best thing about a lot of modern fighting games, they don't have quarter circles for some moves. Yeah, there's just some games that just flat out don't have quarter circles, and they basically allow expression to be put out in another way. And I know this is like a big point of contention in fighting games, especially whether or not simplifying it lowers the skill cap or lowers the skill ceilings. Like, oh no, all these newbies, they're gonna not know how hard it was to do Zangief's command grab, where you have to go entirely around the world in order to... It's dumb. That's obviously just an example. But in general, learning how to do these is difficult. It took me like a solid month to like understand how to do it consistently, because if you're not used to it, doing the whole entire motion, especially on like a modern gaming controller, at least to me, I cannot do quarter circles on modern gaming controllers. The space is just so tiny, and it just bothers me. Like, I literally went out of my way to buy an arcade stick specifically so I can do quarter circles better, which, by the way, worked. I love my arcade stick. It is absolutely fantastic. I've had it for like 2 years, and I cannot dream of giving that thing up. In general, like all things in life, knowing how to do a quarter circle takes patience and practice. Do not beat yourself up if you do not get the quarter circles consistently, because even to this day, I still fuck up the quarter circles on my Broly and Dragon Ball Fighters, which leads to so many dropped combos that make me so angry that it's insane. But yeah, no, in general, be patient with yourself on these. Nobody gets these right on their first try. So you're probably looking at the screen right now, for all you people who don't know what all these things are, and you're like, how the hell does he expect me to read all of this? You don't really need to know all those terms, because as I was about to point out in the next slide, there is a literal handy-dandy notebook called, it's the fighting game Glossary, I think is what everyone refers to it. The website link itself is a bit funky. But basically, it's a giant fighting game dictionary where if you don't understand a term, just input it into the glossary and it will literally bring up the term for every fighting game it applies to. And it is absolutely incredible. Like, things will just come naturally. Like, if you listen to a tournament enough times, basically, you'll get the hang of what certain things mean and things like that. Come on. This thing's like 7 years old and somehow it still keeps trudging on. You'll basically get the hang of what all those things mean really easily. Oh, thank you, Opera GX, for loading up after 17 years. But basically, any term that... This isn't even all the terms, basically. This is literally the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you're looking at. So it is insane. But like I said, the fighting game glossary will help you out. Literally every single game I could think of is on here. Every single modern game will inevitably be on here. And you can literally look up any term that confuses you, and it'll show you a in-depth definition. It is like Britannica itself wrote all these definitions. The next thing, please, for the love of fucking God, use an Ethernet cable, please! For those of you who do not know, people who do not use Ethernet cables are the bane of fighting game players' existence. It is the bane of Smash players' existence, especially since they do not have good Wi-Fi at all. They have, like, this is an absolute necessity. It is like a $20 purchase if you want a longer one, but please, a good connection is God tier for both players. A bad connection will have like one person on the other end going like, oh my God, I'm schmoovin', I'm a god, I'm mixing this guy up. Why is he not blocking these lows? And the other guy's like, wait, where'd he go? He just teleported. He rolled back all the way. Where'd that low come from? And things like that. Your god tier internet, I don't care if you have like Japanese optic fiber, light speed connection internet. it is not better than a wired connection. It is absolutely not better. Even with good things like rollback netcode, which I will get to in a minute, just please use Ethernet cable. It is literally a please be kind rewind situation. It is for the courtesy of everyone you are playing against and for yourself. And why netcode matters, specifically in this case, rollback, okay, I misspelled future. This is what I get for like making this PowerPoint at like 5 in the morning. I misspelled like the easiest word in like the English language, future. But rollback netcode is basically the future of fighting games, and I think every veteran in here can say, fuck delay-based netcode. Screw it, nobody likes it. It is horrible. You are basically playing Call of Duty Black Ops for like the Xbox 360. It is horrible. You are getting that constant connection interrupted thing. You guys know what I'm talking about, where you see the Ethernet cable like slithering away and you're like, no, go back, please. I want to get my like chopper gunner, please. But things like that are why delay-based netcode is horrible, because it will literally delay one person's inputs and the other person's not going to get that until they likely see it. It's basically like hit, basically. Like, if you guys have seen Dragon Ball, it's hit. Like, you're like, all right, I'm gonna fight this guy, and you're like about to throw that first punch, then hit comes out of nowhere and teleports, and it's just like, nah, just knocks your ass down. It is basically like that. You are fighting hit on steroids when you're doing that. And rollback netcode is very important because unlike fighting hit, rollback netcode will just simply revert back to a previous stage where it knows the moves are guaranteed, because rollback netcode is like impressive AI, because what it actually does is that it's predicting every single move you're going to do, basically. And if you don't do the move it predicts, just reverse back time, all right? It does the move you put in. That's a really simplified version of it, but in general, if you see a game has rollback netcode, you know you're in for a good time, because that company actually cares about that game selling well. And one thing you'll find, most fighting game devs have no idea how to make a good online. This is because a lot of fighting games... Oh, yep.
Didn't the modders of like Melee actually make...
Yes. And then they banned it immediately at Nintendo events. They banned it immediately. Yeah. But this is because most fighting games are made in Japan, where they do not give a fuck because they have lightning fast internet speed to connect everyone on that tiny island. I'm not kidding, by the way. That's literally the main reason why. The Wi-Fi in Japan is like really solid from what I've heard, and because of that, they don't really care about the rest of the world where they have like really high quality Wi-Fi. Here in the States, it's horrible. Anyone who has dealt with like a Wi-Fi, not representative, but like if you dealt with like Comcast or DirecTV or whatever, you know how horrible Wi-Fi packages can be in terms of the speeds they give you there. Basically, it is horrible. And I know specifically, I know the Tekken dev specifically said, yeah, no, fuck you guys in the United States. When it came to this issue, he's not putting it in Tekken 7. So... And as I was saying, without good netcode, a fighting game is essentially dead on arrival. Perhaps the biggest example I can think of this is Granblue Fantasy Versus. That game literally came out right as the pandemic hit. It died on arrival because its netcode was absolutely atrocious, and obviously with the pandemic, nobody was doing in-person events. And so while, yes, the community for that game still is active to this day, it's not as big as it should have been. So it really paid the price for not having good netcode. And this is where I get to games you should get into if you're getting into fighting games. So the first one I have here is Guilty Gear Strive. As I was saying earlier, this one literally tries its best to onboard as many people as possible. It's a 1v1 game, a bit on the slower side, kind of like a bit of like a OG Street Fighter neutral in a sense. Until you get hit and then you realize, oh god, why'd I let Gold Lewis combo me like this with his pizza moves? Relatively simple motion inputs. The hardest thing I think you'll find in that game is, as I was saying, Gold Lewis and his Behemoth Typhoon. Everything just... He is an insane character, but you know what? He is the all-American character, so no wonder he had to be so complicated. Rollback netcode. It has good netcode for the most part. I've heard it's best on PC, obviously since most PCs are optimized for that sort of thing. But console versions are okay too from what I've heard. Crossplay is coming soon. This is the biggest thing. You can play with people like through PC to PS5, Xbox to PS5, things like that. It is absolutely a joy. I am happy that it is happening. It does, however, make my justification of buying the game twice a little bit repetitive in retrospect. RIP, my wallet. Second reason, banger music. Literally, people meme on this thing because people say, oh, this is literally just Daisuke releasing like his new album. And oh, look, there's a fighting game disc attached to this. Would you look at that? It's very handy. I ordered a music album, but you know what? I'll take the fighting game too. It is just absolutely amazing when it comes to the music, and it has all the music from all the games, I believe, as well. But you have to like do this stupid fishing mini game. I hate it. Why can't I just unlock this normally? So much cash spent at that fishing station. It's so sad. But story mode is basically a 6-hour anime, and it comes with its own glossary. So anything you don't understand in the story mode, you literally can just look it up in the game there. You don't even need to pull out your phone to understand it. There's an in-game glossary explaining everything. That's how convoluted the story got. And overall, the price is relatively cheap. Base game, obviously it's a modern game, so it's like it'll run you about $60 just for the base game alone. Base game plus DLC as of now, because we do not know how much the second DLC pass is going to cost, is $84 on Steam. But good news, you pretty much get everything here for half off because the Steam sale hasn't ended yet. So if you really want this game, you can go out and buy it on Steam for PC, and you will get so much value out of it because it's an absolutely amazing game except for the lobby system. Fuck the parks. But yeah, Steam sale. Go get this if you have it, if you're interested. Like I said, just listening to the music alone is awesome. Yes. It is an absolutely incredible game that I love to watch, but I do not love to play. It's going to be ironic considering one of the games I have upcoming, but I just don't like being infinite in it for a long time, personally. Especially when all you hear is kick and things like that. It's dumb, but I love the game. A lot of things I love, like Phoenix Wright, absolutely comes with one of the most banger mechanics in all of fighting games. Jean Grey Phoenix is absolutely amazing to watch when you actually get it off and things like that. Obviously, like I said, Iron Man loops. I think that's MVC too. Yeah, no, I'm mistaking. I'm mistaking it, but yes, I saw a hand in the back. Of Marvel, no. I picked it up for the PlayStation when it was on sale like 2 years ago. I have not picked it up on PC yet, though, simply because, like I said, I didn't really get into the game myself. But, oh yeah, speaking of mods, the mods for this game are awesome and incredible. You do look into that. There's literally a Pepsi Man mod for this, and it is glorious. Yeah, Goku's in the game. Yeah, someone ported Goku in the game, and it's glorious. It's a Guilty Gear. It's hilarious. Yes, Goku's in the game. Yes, this is another one that I especially recommend to beginners. It is Blazblue Cross Tag Battle, or as they say, Blazblue Cross Tag Battle. Every single time you open that shit up. It is a 2v2, very easy to play. There are auto combos out the wazoo for every single character in this. You can, from what one friend literally put this best, it is a 2-button game practically in terms of the attacks you have. The skill curve is really rewarding because once you do get used to the gameplay system and you start learning combos and assists, things like that, you feel like a god. You feel like an absolute god. It's like, oh, I'm about to mix this dude up with my Susanoo. Well, just watch. He's not going to see this coming. Just recently got rollback netcode. The scene for this game is so large, it got rollback netcode recently. I believe it was earlier in the year. So it is absolutely playable online. It is amazing for that reason. It is basically the Smash of fighting games. It is a crossover of BlazBlue, Persona 4 Arena, Under Night in Birth. I believe I call it UNES because it is literally one of the dumbest names in fighting games, and I can't be bothered to remember the entire thing. Ruby is in here for I genuinely don't understand how Ruby got in here. But you know what? They got a crossover with the Justice League coming up, so you know what? They got connections in high places, apparently. But to kind of elaborate, there's even more crossover. There's a Sengon Kagura character in this game, and she is annoying. She is... you can play as a tank. Like, I'm not, like, an actual German tank, pretty much. You can play as him in this game, and he is just fun. You just take up half the screen, and when you jump, it is the, like, most awkward-looking animation ever, and it is glorious. And like I said, it is the smash of fighting games because you have damn near 50 characters. Like, I can't remember exactly how many characters are in this game, but it is damn near 50. Matches are very fast-paced, like, so if you, like, live a life where you can't really get that many games in at a time. Like I remember like Evo for this game took only like 10 minutes for like grand finals. It was hilarious because it was like, oh, okay, that's it, that's over. All right, you know what? The games were sick though. I absolutely enjoyed watching it. It is absolutely a fantastic game. It'll introduce you to so many different fighting games. Like for example, the Persona 4 section of the game recently just got a re-release, Persona 4 Ultimax Arena. So I think I mixed up those words, but it got a re-release recently. Plays differently to this game. I wouldn't really recommend it because there's a lot of things like you have to learn in the game, and the Shadow Naoto is just a monster that you do not want to run into online, things like that. But in general, really solid game. It is, for me personally, what slowly got me into fighting games. This was the first one I was introduced to, and I got back into it recently. Base game is $20. It is that cheap. And base game plus every single DLC is only $50. You get all the characters, all the skins basically for $50. And like I said earlier, that's lower right now. You can get the base game for $4 right now on Steam sale. It is absolutely incredible. And the base game offers you so many characters alone. It is absolutely fantastic. It is one of my favorite fighting games of all time. I love it, even though people like to rag on it for being a baby's game. I don't care. It is absolutely fun. The characters are full of life. The animations are fantastic for the most part. Overall, good game. This one's gonna shock a few of you probably. This one is Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. Which is, and this is the one where I said it's going to be ironic that I don't like getting infinited, because this game is Infinite City practically. This is basically if Marvel 3 had a child, basically. It is done in the same vein as that. It is a 3v3 game. Each person chooses 3 characters. Very easy to play. There are absolutely no quarter circles in this game, unless you are playing like Ryu and Chun-Li, I believe. Which, by the way, Ryu and Chun-Li are in this game. They're Power Rangers. Isn't that awesome? And it is absolutely an easy game to play. You can map pretty much everything to a single button and things like that. It's an extremely diverse character roster. The reason why I like this game a lot is because not every single character feels the same, and that every single character has something unique about them. There's something to love, there's something to hate about every single character, and it's just really unique in terms of everything that's in it. Easily, in my opinion, the most underrated fighting game right now that's currently going on. Like I said, no motion inputs really. I mean, there's like some stuff, like just a back and forth, some simple things. It's not really like do a quarter circle or do a pizza move. Base game is $20. Really cheap. You get a lot of characters for that. All the Megazords in this game are free. By the way, you can call in Megazords midway through the fight to help you out. That's pretty cool. Base game plus DLC is like around $60 to $70 right now. So one thing you guys are probably wondering in your heads right now, why didn't you bring up this game? Why didn't you bring up that game? Why isn't my favorite game up here on things that you would recommend to new people? And that's because the reason I recommended these games, or the games I just recommended to new people, one, they are very cheap. That is the important thing. You don't want to give a new person Tekken 7, because the amount of DLC you have to buy for that game easily amounts up to like beyond $100. And the last thing you want is like your best friend coming up to you saying, yeah, no, I bought the entire thing. I hate the game. I hate you for recommending it. Why'd you make me do this? Things like, I know Dragon Ball especially like got really bad. Like the only Super Edition they have currently only gives you like up to year 2 of DLC, when there's like 2 more like seasons beyond that. So it can get really dumb. and things like that. And in general, whatever fighting game you choose, you don't have to go with the 3 I just mentioned up here. You can easily play whatever you want. If you play Tekken 2, you can go with Tekken 7 and you can play that to your heart's content. I am simply recommending to you what I've personally found to be the best fighting games to introduce people with, especially Battle for the Grid. I had a friend who absolutely hated every single fighting game I gave to him. He hated Fighters, he hated Cross Tag, he hated Central Fiction, and then I gave him Battle for the Grid and he's like, yeah, no, I love this game. It feels great. I don't have to memorize quarter circles and things like that. I really love the characters in this. And he absolutely loves that fighting game. It is incredible to see like his like turn of face. It's like normally I would have to drag him out of like a Discord call to play a fighting game. Now he's like, oh yeah, no, you want to play some Battle for the Grid real fast? And it is absolutely incredible to see like that complete 180 just because you introduced that person to a fighting game they really vibed with. And it is, like I said, play what you want, but if you are getting into it, play the games I mentioned earlier. To kind of close it out, questions? Does anybody have anything they would want to ask me? Yes.
Are you looking forward to Street Fighter 6?
I am, because Street Fighter V was a complete monstrosity that Capcom mishandled, and I am very, very happy to see they have learned from that and are actually putting effort this time. Yes.
Do you think the latest version of King of Fighters?
King of Fighters, I wanted to get into that, but I don't know. Something just felt off about the game for me. I don't know what it was, but great game from what I've seen. I really enjoy watching competitive matches of it. Blue in the front, yes.
Best character select screen.
Best character select screen, shoot. I'm not going to say Cross Tag, because that's like damn near the worst character select screen I've ever seen. Yeah, no, the Cross Tags, it is horrible. You have to like go through rows and everything. It's like, just let me choose my character. But best select screen, probably the Tekken select screen, because like the sound effects, like especially when like you select your characters, and obviously the iconic like things where you go like Kazuya, Mishiba, and like things like that, like they absolutely knocked it out of the park with that select screen. It is amazing. You and the not the redhead, I'm colorblind now, the black hat.
What do you think of DOA?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Dead or Alive on
I have not played Dead or Alive yet, to be honest. I honestly, like, up until like a few months ago, I thought Dead or Alive was just like a volleyball porn simulator game. like that's on me because I've heard good things about it, but let's just say the franchise's reputation hasn't exactly come full force with me. Yes, you, green shirt.
I'm sorry if you already answered it, but what was your favorite fighting game? Like the top 10?
My favorite fighting game?
Or I guess what you consider like the pinnacle of fighting games at this point?
I don't think I would consider anything the pinnacle of fighting games at this point, because, like I said earlier, like, fighting games are just really what jives with you. Like, I could say easily my favorite fighting game to play is like a tie between Cross Tag and Battle for the Grid. But obviously, neither of those games, like those games have their problems and everything like that. I fully accept that. But it's just, I really vibe well with how those games play and things like that. I would have to say the pinnacle of fighting games would have to be anything with rollback and crossplay in it. Which is why I like, I didn't mention it actually in Battle for the Grid. Battle for the Grid has crossplay, by the way. It is literally it was one of the first games to introduce crossplay, proper lobby systems, and rollback. It had rollback before it was like a super big thing that people are crying out for nowadays. That is why I respect the developers and respect the game that is so much. Yes.
Have you played a lot of Smash Bros. Ultimate?
Yes, that is how I started getting into competitive fighting games myself. I think I barely touched on this, but I was the Smash Club president for Harold Washington College for like a solid 2 years before I had to transfer out to Illinois State. So,
I'm glad story into the game.
yes, fantastic. I will take 2 more questions because I don't want to have the poor people outside waiting. Blue shirt.
So what made you transition from Smash Bros. And other platform fighters to the ones you play now?
Honestly, like I said with Cross Tag, it was just the characters and how it felt. Like, coming off of Smash, and like I said, I absolutely hated fighting games for like their complexity or what I thought was their complexity and things like that. And playing Cross Tag made me realize not every fighting game is going to have like your like Konami code, hard to do command inputs and things like that. And it really opened my eyes and go like, wow, this genre is way more than what I gave it credit for.
Would you recommend DNF for beginners fighting games?
I would say give it a week or two more because there are some dumb things that are happening in that is just like not beginner friendly at all. I think the big thing that comes to mind is like I think some people in this room probably see it, but the Crusader Infinite that got done on someone at like an official tournament or something like that, and it's things like that that I think would really turn some people away from it. Is like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna sit here and get cornered, and that game's just really fast in general. So, like I said, give it like a week or two, and I'll probably have a bit of a better opinion on it. But the game's just like started practically. But that's all the questions I'm going to answer in this room now. As I mentioned, I am a YouTuber. I do video essays and things like that on games that I really like and really dig. Currently, I'm working on like a Scooby-Doo project currently again. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions or you want to ask anything in specific, just come up to me as I'm leaving this panel. I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you for giving me your time. If you like my content, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys hopefully in another con. Hey guys, so that's pretty much the end of the video and also the end of the panel. I'm hoping to do more stuff like that in the future, as well as covering different topics, and basically just use the opportunity of me talking at cons as a way to maybe just super fire certain ideas I have out. And obviously I had lots of fun doing this, so hopefully I'll be able to do more of these next summer. And I really hope to see more of you guys turn out to these because I always really do interact with the audience, and I enjoy that. That is what led me into doing this, pretty much. It's just you guys and, you know, having a conversation. But the Scooby-Doo video should be out in August. I will start editing it immediately after this because this was a relatively quick one. And then after that, I'm pretty much going into hyperfire mode in order to get the Halloween content out. Because unlike last year, I'm going to try and make sure that October and September are my years or my months where I pop off. So I hope to see you guys then. And if you like this type of content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.